The White Bear Micropub on Southbourne Grove is a proud supporter of AFC Bournemouth and sponsor of all departments. Head to the Bear for real ales, locally produced food and plenty of good conversations about the Cherries. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.
Here come the Cherries and we're heading for the top of the tree. Bournemouth is a team that's going to show Division 3. Here come the leaders and the scorers at the Saturday, showing how to win the Southern way. So we sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. While you're out there winning, hear the shouting and the singing. We sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. Here come the Cherries, here come the Cherries, here come the Cherries, number one.
Hello and welcome to All Departments. Our much-changed Cherries ensured that romance is not dead as they made it through to the fourth round of the FA Cup with a 2-1 victory over Birmingham at the always happy hunting ground of St Andrews. Here to tell us how we did it in the wind and rain is Neil Weedon. Neil, welcome to All Departments.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to talk to you.
Yes, great to have you on. Now, I heard the match described in various ways since the final whistle yesterday. Some have said it was an unattractive spectacle played in difficult conditions, and others have commented that it was a classic cup tie. How did you view the proceedings overall?
I suppose it was a bit of both. There were times when it was a classic cup tie, and the conditions sort of helped to make it feel like one because people were sliding about all over the place. It was a dirty day in Birmingham yesterday. It was horrible. And the ground, well, it was pretty good to start with, but we had a lot of rain during the game, and I think the referee did quite well not to pull up a few tackles because people were sliding about, and I think he appreciated that and let the game run as well as he could.
Yeah, it sounds like some of the ingredients for a classic cup tie. It's unusual for us to be the bigger team, but it was it played in the in the kind of the spirit of the FA Cup, I think it's fair to say. Well, one of the things about the FA Cup that obviously has diminished its spirit a little bit in quite a few years now, probably the last 10 to 15 years, is the way that the managers play what they never describe as a weakened team, but everybody knows that it's obviously not our first 11 that was out there yesterday. I mean, it was 11 changes, so a completely different team to that which played in the previous game. And I mean, it's an ongoing debate, and I don't really want to explore it too much because Eddie's set out his stall long since that he's not going to play the A team in these types of games. But I think the upside of it, aside from the players in the squad who get to put in a claim, stake a claim for a first team place. I think there was one or two yesterday. I thought, well, Mark Pugh is always on the verge of the first team. I thought by all reports and from what I saw, played really well. But it was also good to see Matt Butcher and Jordan Lee get an opportunity to play. And players have to make their debut some point in their career, because otherwise they don't have a career. How did those two get on yesterday?
Yeah, I think certainly Butcher, who was playing out of position, he's a central midfielder as far as I can, from what I've heard from interviews. He started at left back, and he said in an interview with Cherries player or whatever it's called, he said that he was anxiously looking out to see who was going to play left back because he thought he might slot in there. And I thought he played the better of the two. He looked more assured, I think, than Lee. Lee looked a little bit nervous to start with, and he had Viv Solomon Otterball, who apparently is the new Damari Gray, running down the wing at him, and he was quite quick. He was quite sharp, and he set up a chance right in the first couple of minutes. He looked a little bit shaky to start with, but he really grew into the game, and as the game progressed, you could see it was a game of sort of three contrasting thirds, because the team obviously haven't played together much before. So the first 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes, they were really struggling to string a couple of passes together, and that went for the two new lads as well, making the debuts. And then they really got into it. But I think Lee probably tired a little bit, and he was substituted. Well, I think it was in about the 82nd minute, something like that. But by which time he looked tired. So I think they both did pretty well through the middle of the game. We didn't see any of the sort of runs that you'd expect from Charlie Daniels and Adam Smith. But then that's not surprising really, because they had more work to do at the back. Because Cottrell and Ottable, got down the wings quite a lot. So I think all in all, it was a really good test for them against some pretty good players. I mean, I know Cottrell's been around for quite a while. I think they came out of it pretty well.
Yeah, it must be, well, obviously a thrill, but also hugely nerve-wracking and mentally draining to play in your first professional game. And it's obviously a moment that they've been dreaming about for a long time. I know Matt Butcher made a substitute appearance, I think, in the League Cup. But I remember reading recently about Eddie Howe, somewhere online, speaking about when he made his debut, when he found out he was in the team, and how he had a kind of physical reaction. He described as this feeling all over his body when his name was read out that he was going to play, and it wasn't long before the game started. So yeah, to settle down, and I guess once the game kicks off and you've been playing for a few minutes, the butterflies evaporate a bit unless there's some kind of horrendous incident that you're involved in. But by the sounds of things, they both did well. Now Birmingham had every reason to want to beat us yesterday. The history of the last couple of times we played them, obviously the 8-0 in particular is the one that sticks out, and their fans must have been desperate for revenge after last season. And by the sounds of things, they probably started the better, didn't they?
They certainly did. I mean, the first 15, 20 minutes, they played really well. And they were really quick to the ball. They were closing us down. They weren't letting the midfield pass the ball around like our first team do. And then we started to get a little bit more control over the game. I mean, they had that chance in the first minute or so, which was really, really close. The ball coming from the left and the guy put it over. And it looked as though we were going to struggle. But once we sort of settled into the game, we sort of took control for the middle third.
And we began to find our feet, like you said, after a little while. And we had a couple of decent chances. There was one when Jan Kermagon hit the bar. Well, it was the edge of the corner of the bar on the post. Mark Pugh received the ball from Jordan Lee and did a little bit of his trademark trickery and put in quite a looping cross. And Jan, as of old, rose between the two defenders on the edge of the 6-yard box. And like I said, he headed it against the corner of the post and the bar. And then the ball came back to him, and he had another header, which went straight to the goalkeeper. So he probably should have scored with that one. I mean, Jan's been backed by Howe this week, saying that he's part of his plans going forwards. How did he play yesterday?
Yeah, he played quite well. Because the way that Birmingham were closing us down in midfield, there wasn't a lot of opportunity, and we weren't getting down the wings as much as we usually do. We had, I think, Tomlin started out wide with and Pugh on the other side, and then they swapped. And Tomlin was out of positions and out of sorts, and obviously he's not played much recently, so there wasn't a lot of service coming in into the middle that way, and we couldn't get the ball through the centre until things swapped round when Ranty went off. then things started looking better for us. But Jan, he's got class, hasn't he? And even if he's a bit slower now than maybe he used to be, I don't know if he ever was quick, but he's certainly not that quick these days. But a couple of little touches. He put Ranty in early on, but Ranty couldn't make anything of it. And it's a shame that he can't play a number 10 role or at least play a number 10 role with someone else ahead of him who's likely to score and make the runs for him, because I think it makes him look better when there's someone better ahead of him.
Yeah, that's what Eddie said. Yesterday. That's what Eddie said in the piece that came out midweek, where he said he was still very much part of his plans. Eddie said he couldn't like him anymore as a player, and it was just unfortunate that because we've gone mainly with one up front since all the injuries, it hasn't been possible to play him in his normal position. And I guess that is a position that also somebody like Tomlin would be gunning for if he was fit as well. Yep. But at the moment, well, we'll see what happens now. Obviously, there's been a development today with the forwards, so we'll talk about that later. At the moment, there isn't a need for a number 10 in the team when you're only playing with one up front, so I guess chances are even more limited. But we had a few more chances of our own as the game went on. I think Pugh and McDonald might have had a go, but then you mentioned Sakilo Ranty, and the poor guy, he gets an opportunity to play, to start, and in a stadium where he scored a couple of goals last season, and obviously hoping to do well like all the other players, and then he had to go off. It sounded like he just went down and he wasn't able to continue. Was it a tackle that he got injured in?
It didn't seem to be. No, the play sort of went away, and there he was left on the ground. I didn't see anyone, clog him or anything. I've got a theory about Ranty that he might be George Weir's other cousin, the one that didn't go to Southampton and play one game under Souness.
You're not a fan then?
Before they realised that he couldn't play at all. So I reckon, I feel sorry for him. He must have something. There must have been 3 million reasons why Eddie bought him. But the poor guy can't catch a break. He's never really been fully fit. He's never had a decent run of games, really, to show us what he can do. But on the other side of it, and I'm sure he has got some skill and finishing ability, because he's done it at Malmö, and obviously has done it for South Africa too. But he doesn't seem to have the awareness of what's going on around him. He's head down, looking at the ball as he's running, and then he doesn't seem to have the ability to look up as he's got the ball in possession to find out what's going on, so that he can either lay it off to someone or run himself. A couple of times yesterday, he got the ball, he sort of dribbled into the box, and then came up against a defender and had to turn around and go back out again. I don't know. And even when he's looking to receive the ball, I was keeping an eye on him yesterday, and he was behind defenders, so he was goal side of the defender, but there was no way that anyone could get the ball to him because the defender was in the way. He doesn't seem to, I don't know, his positional sense, for me, it's just not there.
No, I noticed that.
I don't know what he can do with that.
Well, I'm sure he's being, coached quite heavily. I mean, the work that Eddie does with the players and the difference he's made to the players has, obviously been discussed many times. I guess Ranty kind of sticks out as one that hasn't quite had the impact since he's come to Bournemouth that we would have hoped, and the sort of Eddie Howe factor hasn't necessarily done the trick. I mean, you said that he hasn't really had a run of games, and I talked about that with George recently on one of the previous podcasts, and but like like you said, he can't catch a break. I mean, if it's not one thing, it's another. And well, hopefully he's not too seriously injured. But hopefully we'll see him back on the bench soon. I mean, Matt Ritchie then came on. He was probably hoping for a bit of a rest, or certainly Eddie was hoping to rest him. And like you said, then Lee Tomlin went into the centre of the forward line. But before that could really have any impact, they seemed to immediately score. And it sounded like we kind of... I've seen the goal, but when I was listening to the radio, it sounded like we kind of switched off during the substitution. And then the next thing, the ball was in the net, because it was a handball by Sean McDonald that gave them the free kick on the right-hand side. And it was a good position to, cross the ball in. And you could see the players... there's only a few Birmingham players, only about 4, and then I counted our players, so this doesn't include Boris, but 9 of our players were on pretty much along the line of the 18-yard box, and then the ball was crossed in, and we were just exposed again at a set piece. But on this occasion, it was by a completely different. We got a completely different team on the pitch than we normally have. So the defence was different, but the weakness appeared to still be there. And Cotterill sent in a decent cross, and Michael Morrison rose up between Distan and Cargill. I think it was Cargill. It was definitely Distan, and headed it in. Not much chance really for Federici. So disappointing to concede. But I mean, I mentioned the vulnerability on the balls into the box from set pieces. Do you think that is just something that we notice because Bournemouth are our team, and we see a few goals go in from those positions, or a few near misses, and we think, we're useless to that? Or do you think it's a lot of teams, and we just make more out of it because they're our team?
It's a good question. We do seem to have a weakness there, although it's difficult to know with other teams. I mean, I don't watch enough of other teams to know whether we're just lacking a big, tall centre forward who can head the ball, because we don't tend to play with one, do we? Kerr gets a reasonable head of the ball, but he's not there that often, and Murray hasn't really got the physical presence, it seems, when he's on the pitch to get up and actually sort of battle with the centre halves. I've looked at that goal yesterday a few times, and it just seems that our defenders aren't looking at the ball; they're looking at the player when the ball comes in, so they don't have a chance to get off the ground. Whereas Morrison's looking at the ball all the way, and he times his jump really well. I mean, it's a good goal. If you're Morrison, you'd be happy that you've done everything that you're supposed to do. I've never played as a centre half, so I don't know the ins and outs of it. But it does appear that it is difficult to defend against someone running at you, because you're going to be stationary. They're going to be moving until the ball's hit. So I don't know what more we can do with it.
No, and I guess we must be working on it a lot, and you'd imagine it's focused on quite heavily in how we can improve our game, and there's so many positive things to say about the way we play. And I think it's... I mentioned about how I think maybe it's something that we focus on that could be just as bad if we supported another team, but you don't notice, because if we were to score, and we scored a few goals from corners this year, or if we were to score a goal similar to theirs yesterday, you really wouldn't give a second thought to the opposition's record over the season in terms, or over this season and last season, in terms of how they defended set pieces into the box. You just would be celebrating the goal. So yeah, I think it's something that sticks out, but perhaps something we sometimes focus on as fans a bit too much. But then again, we do enjoy all the good things.
Maybe it's because we play a different way, so we don't often sort of lump the ball into the box. So statistically, there's going to be less times when we're doing that to the opposition than they're doing to us, perhaps.
Yeah, I guess our style of play isn't relying on those kind of chances. I mean, some teams have a reputation for, well, I suppose West Brom are probably a good one, for kind of playing those percentage type situations and, you know, hoping to snatch a goal from them. And obviously they were the same when Tony Pulis was at Stoke, perhaps even when he was with us. But yeah, we're sort of looking for a slightly more artistic way to put the ball into the net. Sometimes you think just shoot, but yeah, we certainly play a different style. Anyway, we conceded the goal, so obviously we're 1-0 down in the cup tie. Never good to go 1-0 down, but it wasn't long before we were back in it, because we got a penalty about 4 minutes after Birmingham scored. Weedon O'Kane was heavily involved in this. He had the ball just outside the box. He kind of pirouetted and laid it off to Ritchie, and Ritchie held off a couple of defenders and then played it back to O'Kane. O'Kane then backheeled it to Lee Tomlin, who immediately played a first-time ball through to O'Kane. And then O'Kane was in this kind of gap in the 18-yard box. He wasn't clean through on goal, though. But Jonathan Grounds, the Birmingham player, then bundled O'Kane over. And, well, I don't know if it was a penalty or not. I mean, it's one of those where you'd say, well, if it's given outside the box, you wouldn't even bat an eyelid, really. But because it's inside the box, obviously the punishment is harsher. And as everybody knows, the rule is the same. If it's a foul outside the box, it's a foul inside the box. But as also everyone knows, the actual interpretation is sometimes it needs to be a little bit more obvious as a foul for it to be given as a penalty. But it was given. The Birmingham players did protest quite a bit. Were you surprised it was given?
Not really. It looked like a penalty from where, I mean, we were right down the other end of the ground, so we didn't have the greatest view. But looking back on it, on the TV, the ball that came into O'Kane from Tomlin was hit quite hard, and it got sort of caught under O'Kane's foot, and he sort of intending to move forward, ended up sort of bending over a bit, and the defender, thinking he was going to move forward and trying to follow him, just nudged into his back, and it looked like he got a sort of elbow in between the shoulder blades and knocked him over. That's how it looked to me. So I would have thought, yeah, if that's happening anywhere on the pitch. So I'd like for the defender, because he anticipated the O'Kane's movement, but O'Kane didn't move. But I suppose it's only what a centre forward does sometimes. So it looks like a penalty to me. I know Gary Rowett didn't agree. He said neither of them are penalties, but I would have thought that's a nudge in the back, and that should be given as a foul anywhere on the pitch.
Yeah, like I said, letter of the law, I guess it's a penalty. Interpretation of the law, well, it's strange. I think we had a chat about this against when we did the post-Leicester podcast and the penalties that were the one that was given in that. But yeah, sometimes you see really weak penalties, soft penalties being given, and then other times you see stuff that looks so obvious. I think this one was somewhere between these two, but he gave it anyway. And Lee Tomlin stepped up to take it. When the penalty was awarded, I was expecting Jan Kermagont to take it. He took quite a few last season, but no, Tomlin got hold of the ball. I'm guessing he was the designated taker in the absence of Charlie Daniels. And yeah, he kept his cool, straight down the middle, wet conditions. The keeper dived to his right, and that was his first goal for the club. So we were back in it, 1-1 at half time, and it must have been quite a significant blow for Birmingham. Obviously, they'd have been more than happy to go in at 1-0, and a boost for us, because the second half was anyone's game, and lucky it turned out to be ours in the end. So just before we go on to talk about the second half, I wanted to ask you about the atmosphere and the banter between the fans yesterday. I wasn't there. Was there a lot of exchanges between the fans regarding the 8-0 win?
There's quite a lot between our 2.5 hours and about 20 of theirs right up in the corner behind the corner flag. The rest of it, I mean, I don't know if you've been to Birmingham before, but it's sort of half of it is a relatively new structure with the corner filled in, which looks quite smart. And the other 2 stands are old. We're in one of the old ones, and the one down the side of the pitch, which all the press sit in, there were no fans in there at all. And so there was only 13,000, I think, or so. And it was really quiet. I noticed that the Birmingham fans behind the goal at the far end, only once did all the Birmingham fans sing together, and it was quite a good atmosphere then. But that was really about it. The rest of the time, there were about 20 to 30 fans right up the back in the corner, not far from where we were, making comments. And the one time, which I thought was quite amusing, they were all shouting, "Rowett, give us a wave." And he couldn't hear because there was only about 20 of them singing it. So we all started singing back to them, he can't hear you, which I think they found quite amusing.
Yeah, it must be, I think there's probably quite a lot of clubs who are still struggling. The fans are still struggling to come to terms with the fact that a club of our size has kind of outstripped them, certainly in terms of the success that we've had, the league position, and in games like that, they must be looking to put one over on us, and particularly because they've got plenty of motivation to do so, and it just hasn't really worked. And Birmingham, I mean, it must be a hard slog being a Birmingham fan. It's certainly not been easy being a Bournemouth fan over the years, but they've always flirted with being a big club, but it's never quite happened. They've had a little bit of success here and there, but then even when they won the League Cup, they managed to get relegated in the same season. So yeah, it's great for us to be able to go to clubs like that and feel confident that we can get a result, and we did yesterday. I mean, it was in the balance for a while, but yeah, it must be a bit strange for their fans, and their frustrations come out in various ways, not always in the most dignified ways either. But I suppose we shouldn't worry too much about that.
All Departments is sponsored by the White Bear Micro Pub on Southbourne Grove, the perfect pre- and post-game venue to chat about the game, and only a 25-minute walk to the ground, or there's a bus stop right outside. Wear your AFCB shirt on any match day and receive 30p off each pint. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.
So into the second half, I think we made quite a lively start. As we said, Lee Tomlin had now taken up a central role, and so we were playing with two genuine wingers and a kind of a number 10, as discussed. And I think he had a shot himself, but it was deflected wide. Sean McDonald backheel one across the goal from a Pew cutback. Were either of those good chances?
Yeah, they were. We had quite a few. Like you say, we had quite a few chances. O'Kane cut in and hit a shot that went wide. The one that McDonald backheeled, he sent Pew out a ball and onto the left wing and came in. And it's a bit like the really chance, but from last week, but not. He didn't connect with it, so it went quite a way wide of the goal. But it was still a reasonable chance. And
then in the 58th minute, they got a penalty, which they ultimately missed. Sylvain Distin tried to clear the ball, but he had his back. He was facing towards our goal. He was well over on the right-hand side of the pitch, and he kind of booted it out but it didn't really travel very far up the pitch. It more went across the pitch and was then played back to Michael Kuftenbeld. I hope I'm saying his name properly. And he went into the box and did this kind of platoon-style fall under a challenge from Ewan O'Kane. And like you said, even Gary Rowett said it wasn't a penalty. But I noticed watching it a couple of times today, there was very little protest from our players, which is normally a sign that it was a foul. But anyway, as with the other one, the ref gave it. And then James Vaughan stepped up to take it. And apparently he's a Birmingham fan, and his dad watches the team play from that stand behind the goal where he took the penalty. I don't know if he was aiming for his dad, but he just blazed it over, and Artur Boruc went to ground and then looked up and saw it going over the goal. I suppose, Boruc saved it last week. The guy didn't even hit the target this week. First of all, did you think it was a penalty? And secondly, well, it wasn't a very good penalty, was it?
No, it wasn't. And just to pick you up, there was Federici in goal yesterday.
Oh, sorry, yeah, of course.
Not Boruc, yeah. Yeah, well, the penalty, it was difficult because from where I was sitting, there were a couple of players in between me and where Ewan O'Kane were, and it looked like the ball was travelling in the direction of the corner flag, and O'Kane sort of ran behind the Birmingham player, and it was difficult to see. And I think even on the TV highlights, it's difficult to see whether there's any contact made. But the Birmingham player just seems to keep going straight. It's not like O'Kane took his legs. You can't see his legs sort of go to one side or anything. So it's very difficult to work out if it was a penalty or not. But like you say, there wasn't much protest about it.
And Vaughan, like I said, took the penalty, well, very badly. I was looking to see if he slipped John Terry style when he took it, because the ground's wet, and you do sometimes see players do that. But he didn't. He just blazed it over. So a let off for us. We've had 2 penalties in the last 2 games against us. Neither scored. We're always having little digs from opposition fans about the amount of penalties we win. But the ones we seem to get awarded against us, I don't want to tempt fate, but not too many of them seem to go in. So long may that continue. And they had further chances to score as well, Birmingham. Mahoma and Shinnie had a bit of a comedy double act. First of all, Federici, who, as you correctly said, was in goal, he played the ball out to Bailey Cargill, and he played him into a little bit of trouble, actually. And I know we play out from the back, but Cargill was already being picked up by Mahoma, and he was quite tight on him, and there was another Birmingham player in the vicinity as well, so he was closed down, Cargill. And Mahoma robbed him of the ball as soon as he got it, and then went round Ritchie quite coolly to carve himself out a really good opening. Like, there's quite a bit of space for him to aim for in the goal, because Federici was still slightly out of position. And fortunately, again for us, Mahoma hit the post. Didn't quite get it on target. Then it came out to Shinnie, Andy Shinnie, and in Per Mertesacker style, it came to him very quickly, and hit his knee and went onto the post. You think he could have put it in from there, but then of course he was flagged offside, so his blushes were saved. But well, we got away with that one, didn't we?
Yeah, really got away with that, because the original shot by Mahoma, it looked easier to miss than score. A big gap opened up, and you could see on the replay that he had quite a lot of the goal to aim at. But it was just one of those days we rode our luck, and Unfortunately, it came back off the post, and there was no chance for Shinnie to react. But I don't know when the offside was called, because there was an offside called there, and whether it was on the initial rebound off the post, the player there was offside, or when it came back for the second time off the post, whether like the third shot was offside.
Yeah, there was another little phase, wasn't there, where somebody else came in and they missed as well. It was one of our players clearing it. Anyway, but then in the television pictures, you can then see the ref doing that signal they do, where they kind of wave their arm as if they're signalling for like they're doing a 4 in cricket, and yeah, obviously he was offside, so somebody was offside. But Mahoma definitely wasn't. If he'd have scored, then I think it definitely would have stood. And I think not long after that, there was a similar defensive error to Cargill's from Jordan Lee, and Vaughan again missed the target. Was that one close?
To be honest with you, I don't remember that one. The next one I remember was when Distan sliced the ball over. So maybe I was writing my notes when that one happened.
Well, we appreciate your commitment. And then Eddie started to throw the subs. He brought Glenn Murray on for Jan Kermagon, and Steve Cook came on not long afterwards for Jordan Lee, which put Cook at left back. Not a familiar position to him, but he seemed to embrace it, because his marauding run, Charlie Daniels style, up the pitch was key to our winning goal. He pegged it up there and crossed first time. It was a really good cross, actually. And Ewan O'Kane headed it, and it was saved by their goalie Legzdins. And it fell to Mark Pugh, but a bit like Shinnie at the other end, it fell to him quite quickly, and his reaction wasn't fast enough. The ball came to him quite fast, and he hit it with the side of his knee. And again, the keeper got down to it. So I think he stopped it with his legs. And this one I have watched back quite a few times to actually see what happened. And their goalie, Legzdins, he appeared to put one hand on the ball, and then Glenn Murray nips in and just boots it in from under his hand. And they then protest, because they think, well, the goalie had the ball and it was kicked out of his hands. But as far as I'm aware, the rule is it's got to be both hands. And therefore, the goal was good, and the protests fell on deaf ears. So not the prettiest goal to win a match with, but I don't know what your opinion was of that goal, but I think that it was within the letter of the law. It was a goal, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. He got the keeper got one hand on it. It's difficult to it all happen so quickly. I think Cook came down the right for that one, and the header came in from O'Kane, of all people. And like you say, Pugh couldn't get a decent contact on it. But then the keeper kind of fell back, and then as he leaned forward, he got one hand on the ball, by which time Murray had got in there as the poacher and knocked it in. It looked okay from where I was sat. And on the replay, you can't say that the keeper had control of the ball. If he has a hand on it, then I presume it's still fair game for the attacker.
Yeah, and I didn't hear too much protest post-game from the Birmingham camp about that goal. Like you said, Gary Rowe had a bit to say about both penalties, but I don't think he had too much to say about the validity of the goal. Glenn Murray has probably not been embraced by the Dean Court faithful as much as he has been at some of his previous clubs, but he's popped up with a few goals, and a couple of them have been really important. Obviously, Chelsea's the one that sticks out, and yesterday put us through to the next round late in the game. He doesn't appear to score goal of the month contenders. They tend to be little poachers' efforts, sometimes a little bit ugly, but it gets the job done and is placed in the pecking order maybe now threatened that we've signed a phobie. But I think he scored about 5 goals, and maybe isn't everybody's cup of tea, but as Eddie said, he does seem to have that knack of being in the right place at the right time, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And I was watching the warm-up before the game yesterday, and the shooting practice was awful, and Murray and Ranty were the worst too. Murray either hit the ball wide or high or straight at the keeper. When they do the little drill where someone rolls the ball at them and they just come in and have a shot. And not very often did he make the keeper move to save it at all. And Ranty had about 3 or 4 shots and then just went off for a little jog round while the rest of them were doing shooting practice, which seems a bit of a strange way of approaching a game when you're a striker. But Murray, he looks to me like, I don't know, his body language is maybe that he doesn't really want to be with us. That's how it feels. He doesn't seem to have gelled for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe he's not getting enough game time. Maybe, I don't know, he's having to travel from London. I don't know if he still lives up there. But I don't know. He just doesn't... It's a strange signing for me, especially if a phobie was a possibility. It's a strange signing. I know we needed a striker. Maybe he was the only option we had at the time. But he's not quick and direct, but he will get you those goals. The Chelsea goal, was a good finish. He was in the right place, and the same again yesterday. So maybe if we're playing one up front, he's not a great one on his own, I don't think. But then Callum Wilson, we're comparing him with Callum Wilson as a replacement, and that's a difficult thing to do because Wilson was obviously very strong with his runs and had a lot of confidence and scored a lot of goals.
Yeah, it is a bit strange because we were linked with Murray for quite a while before we signed him. I think we were linked with him in this window last year, and eventually we got him. He may have been, as you said, not our first option, but we could get him. He's been in the press a couple of times. I think he was in the press this week saying how he's taken him time to adapt to our style of play and the demands that puts on him and how different it is to where he's played before, which I've kind of read as a sort of reading between the lines as a little bit of a coded message of frustration with what he's had to learn, do, been expected of him since he's got to Dean Court. But yeah, I mean, it'd be a lot harder for him, I think, if he wasn't scoring the odd goal. Tequila Ranty gets a lot of love from the crowd and doesn't score. Well, he hardly ever scores. He's not on the pitch as much as Murray. But I think if Murray had a similar scoring record to Ranty, he hasn't been at the club as long, obviously, then I think he'd be even more unpopular. Yeah, the body language thing, I'm always a bit unsure about reading too much into that because Boric gets that as well. And I always think, well, would Eddie really put them on the pitch, considering the options that he has? I suppose, the options have grown again this month. I guess prior to that, Murray was probably second in line for the striker's role. But, compared to Josh King, who has gone up in everybody's estimation in the past 6 weeks or so and has only scored a couple of goals this season, Glenn Murray is delivering more, certainly in terms of goals. So, he did it again yesterday, and he is quite a good option to have coming off the bench because he does pop up occasionally with a goal that can win us a match, and so it proved yesterday. I think we had another chance after the goal when Richie headed against the post from across. That might have been from Mark Pugh. But then we held on for the last few minutes. I think Federici had to make a save from from Vaughan, and Distan blocked a shot from Davis. But we're in the hat. We made it into the fourth round. There was a time not that long ago when making it into the third round was a thrill. I don't know if there is a huge downside to being in the Premier League, but one of the ones that certainly sticks out is that the excitement of the FA Cup draw isn't what it used to be when we were in the lower leagues, because, you know, when we're down there, even like, what was it, 2 years ago, we drew Liverpool for the first time, and everyone was absolutely cock-a-hoop, and the game was a huge event and special programme being produced for the game and all this kind of thing. Whereas now we're playing, you know, all the top teams in the country week in, week out. So it's not quite the same when you go into the draw for the FA Cup, is it?
Life will never be the same again, will it? No, it's still going to be interesting because, you know, we're still giving these the second string players a game, and I think it's just taken on a different context for us now. I mean, for example, Bailey Cargill was captain yesterday, even though there are a lot more senior players now. That's what a great opportunity for him. He had a good game yesterday too, and so this is the whole ethos of the club now, isn't it? We need these games in order to get these players some game time and to see what they can do against better than reserve team opposition. So I think it's great. You know, we need to stay in the competition as long as we can. We could even win it. You never know.
Yeah,
funny things have happened.
Exactly, and it does seem strange saying that, but then, and I don't want us to go down the same plug old Wigan went down, but I guess it wasn't that long ago that Wigan wouldn't have been considered much bigger club than us, if not the same size of club. And then they had their few years, well, I think it was about 7 years in the Premier League, and won the FA Cup. They were relegated 3 days later, so certainly wasn't all happiness for them, unfortunately, from their point of view. But yeah, I mean, the way that managers approach the FA Cup now, the chance of winning it is not probably any greater than it has been over the years, but you just, well, from our point of view, it's greater because we've got a better squad, we've got more depth in the squad, and even the players that we had on the pitch yesterday, probably, apart from the young lads, Lee and Butcher, the rest would have walked into our first team even 4 years ago. And so, yeah, it would be nice to go through the rounds and have a real pop at the competition. That said, and I'd love to win the FA Cup, and, you know, would be, when we won the championship, it was an amount of glory I never thought that the club would have. To win the FA Cup, I think, would top it. But there's no doubt this season that the manager is, you know, completely focused on staying in the Premier League, and I think as fans we can stomach that at the moment. If it went on for about 5 or 6 years and we were just crawling around the bottom of the division, just trying to cling on to 17th place on goal difference year in, year out, then you might think, well, if we could win the FA Cup this year and get relegated, I'd settle for that. But I think at the moment, overall, most people would settle being knocked out of the FA Cup and retaining the Premier League status. But you don't have to choose between the two, do you? Certainly not.
And I think, as with the last couple of 3 seasons, it's taken us a little while to become accustomed to how we play against teams in better leagues, and we've managed to do that. We've had slow starts and got better, and our coaching team have found a methodology that works really well for them to improve. And buying better players obviously is going to help too. So yeah, there's no reason why we can't. It feels as though we've only got to finish above 2 other clubs now, because Villa look as if they're, you know, they're too far gone to come back, especially with the scenes at Wickham yesterday, which was
they were not happy.
Oh, they weren't happy at all. Were they? So, we're good enough, and I don't think it should be any surprise to anyone who's followed us. And I know that there are a lot of people who sort of disparage what we're doing because of the financial fair play, and we've got a Russian billionaire backing us. But if you look at the real progress we've made, it's with a lot of the players. It's well documented. A lot of the players that have come up from League One with us, and it's good coaching, and it's good fitness work, and it's having the right players with the right attitude. And you look at teams like Villa, and they've got one or more of those things missing. So there's no reason why we can't push on. And if we're going to improve the quality of our players and retain our coaching structure, then I don't see any reason why we can't, have a good run in a cup, or certainly finish, a little bit higher than where we are at the moment in the Premier League.
Yeah, the ambition of the club and those inside the club, the manager, the players, and I guess everybody else in the background, including the owner, is immense, and they don't see any tangible obstacles to achieving those things. I think as fans, and you and I have been supporting the club a long time, it takes a little bit of time every step. Certainly it does for me, to get used to the rarefied air that we at first feel that we're breathing, but then much like you said, the squad then get used to it. I think they get used to it more quickly than I have. We seem to make another step up in terms of our progress. I mean, they always talk about going to the next level. I'm always a bit dubious about that phrase, but that's kind of what I mean. But yeah, and we've shown again our raw ambition today by signing Benik Afobe from Wolves for a fee that has been variously reported, but I'm going to say approximately £10 million, a record signing anyway, more than we paid for Tyrone Mings. Hopefully we'll see him on the pitch a bit more than Tyrone Mings, and he won't fall victim to the injury curse. But it's a staggering amount of money, which highlights our rate of progress. I mean, I don't know about you, I think that from the point of view that I look at it at the moment, it's an excellent signing. He's young, he's quick, he's scored goals wherever he's been. He's English and he's played in this league or this country, so he's not going to have to adapt to. We also have to adapt to the Premier League and adapt to our rather unique style of play. But he's kind of seems to be very much to fit all of the criteria of an Eddie Howe signing, doesn't he?
I think he is a perfect fit for Eddie, and he came up through the Arsenal setup, didn't he? And I think that would give any young player a really good grounding. I mean, another one of my theories is that when Wenger goes, I wouldn't be surprised if they came knocking at our door for Eddie Howe, because I think he's the sort of coach that would fit in nicely at Arsenal, because they've got a fantastic system there. But I mean, the Afobe signing. I lived up in the Midlands for 30 years and worked for companies in and around Wolverhampton, so I know the Wolves fans pretty well up there, a few of them, and they all say he's a cracking player and has been great for them. The more generous ones have said good luck to him. The others have said he's Judas, but you're going to get that anywhere, I guess. But one of the things that I have seen written a few times is that he's good with someone else up with him when he gets the service, but not so good if he's just on his own. However, it depends what we're going to do now. Now that if Iturbe comes in, I mean, maybe he's the quality that we need as a number 10 in and around there. to create chances where we now pass the ball around the area a lot without actually finding a through ball a lot of the time. So maybe that's what we're looking at here, a combination of those two.
Yeah, we haven't had, well, it doesn't feel like we've had a natural goal scorer in the team since Wilson was injured. Someone who's going to put those chances away. And some chances that we should be burying seem to go begging. Josh King's one against Leicester, the header last week sticks out. Play like a Phobe, you would hope. I mean, I've seen him play, but only against us. And to be honest, I wasn't taking that much notice. I will certainly be taking a lot more notice now. From his goal scoring record, at least, and from what the Wolves fans say about him, looks like, if he gets the service, like you said, he was going to gobble up a lot of those chances, which is what every team needs, certainly what we need. And I think that he will hopefully be the answer to that problem that we've had. Our goal scoring hasn't been as rampant as it was last season, and we're also in a more difficult division, but we've also lost our main source of goals. And if he can go on and grab 8-10 goals before the end of the season for us, I think he's scored 9 so far for Wolves. I mean, no guarantee he's going to do that again in this half of the season, but if he's getting the service, then there's a good chance that he'll get near to that figure. I mean, that's going to go a long way to keeping us up, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. And I don't know what we're going to do with all our striking options. I mean, surely someone's got to go. And even literally in the last 5 minutes, Mark McAdam, the Sky Sports guy, who's, I don't know if he's a Bournemouth fan or
he's from Boscombe, isn't he? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. He reports that we've made an official bid for Lewis Grabban again.
Oh, really? I was just going to come on to that, and I was about to say that the signing of a Phobe perhaps puts to bed the speculation regarding Grabban, Austin, Defoe, but obviously not, because
apparently not. No, hot off the press, that one.
Well, Eddie wants him, but I just thought that perhaps we were only going to sign one striker. So
what's going to happen with all our strikers now?
Well, there's only 25 places in the squad, so. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be people going out, isn't there? Whether on loan or permanently. I certainly would expect one or two to start, to be elsewhere by the end of this month.
It concerns me that that we don't go down the route that Portsmouth went down with getting lots of players in, when they're Crouch and Defoe and people like that, because it's still been reported that we're after Defoe. And apparently he's on 80 grand a week. I can't see how we can afford to have him as well. But we've got to get the squad down to a reasonable level, you would have thought, because no one seems to go out these days. They all just come in.
Yeah, that's right. We've gone to complete opposite of what it used to be in the old days. We can't seem to put anybody out, and so many times used to get up on.
Yeah, no more schoolboys on the bench now.
I was talking to my son about that today, actually. He couldn't believe it. I think you mentioned the Portsmouth thing. That's the only concern I have about us splashing out, double-digit millions of figures for players or whatever it was. Is and it's the same with the FFP thing that came up recently. Is we don't want to be the next Portsmouth or the next Wigan or the next Bolton, and the list just goes on and on and on. Of course, when things are going well, which they are at the moment, relatively well, and we've got a good chance of staying in this division, you think, it'd be all right, none of that's going to happen. At the same time, you think, well, I hope, they've all got relegation clauses in their contracts or whatever, and should we go down, we won't then just spiral into this financial chaos. And we've been there before, and I guess in one way you could say, well, there's nothing to fear because we somehow managed to keep the club going, more than once when we were inches from liquidation. But I think I'd prefer it if we didn't go there again.
Yeah, I suppose meantime we can enjoy it, can't we? Going to a lot of new grounds and the full house every week down at every 2 weeks down at Dean Court. I mean, it's fantastic. My first game was 1967, so I've seen quite a bit of up and down, mostly down. And this is just beyond anything I could ever have imagined, especially in those dark days. So I'm although I'm aware of the potential pitfalls, I'm not thinking about them too much. I'm just enjoying the ride at the moment.
Yeah, very wise words. I think that's what we all definitely are doing and should continue to do going forward. And I think there's lots to look forward to as well. It's just, it seems to, you wonder where it will end. You wonder where we will, reach our zenith, and where the ambition of the owner and the manager will be sated. And like you said, if Eddie was to be tempted away by another club one day, a huge club with Champions League potential like Arsenal, then maybe that would be the beginning of the end. But at the moment, we should certainly make the most of it whilst we can, because it may last a long time. It may just last a season or two. So it's all for the good. Anyway, Neil, great to have you on the show, making your debut. It's always good to come on for the first time after a win, and hopefully we'll get to hear from you again in the season. And thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks, Mike. It's a good opportunity. The FA Cup for blooding youngsters.
Well, if Neil saw his first game in 1967, then I think he might be bringing the average age of the squad up slightly more than he'd hoped, but a fine debut nonetheless. Might not have to wait long for further debuts in red and black, as the Hammers are going to be knocking on Tuesday night. So up the cherries in all departments, and goodbye.
This podcast is sponsored by the White Bear, your local micropub on Southbourne Grove, where you can't watch the game, but you can definitely talk about it. Head to the White Bear on any AFCB match day wearing your team shirt and receive 30p off each pint. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.